ESNY. Welcome to the Knicks State of Mind podcast. I'm Danny Small, your host, alongside my co-host, Chip Murphy. Chip, how we doing today?
I'm good, Danny. Ready to talk about some Knicks basketball. What's up with you, man?
Nothing much. It's kind of this quiet, dead period during August here, but the way the NBA does it now is actually perfect. They released a schedule in early August, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to give a deep dive into the Knicks schedule. And I guess I'll start us off. We got Spurs opening night. So I think that's actually a pretty good opening night game. I think the Knicks, they've had some decent ones in years past, but this one, it's a nice, no national television, nothing like that. It's kind of just, a little thing to get them going. But I think playing against the Spurs, Marcus Morris revenge game. I think there's, enough storylines here. You got Popovich, going against Fizdale. I think that's a pretty solid opener for the Knicks. It'll get off the season off on the, at least on an exciting foot, even if not the right foot, because my guess was I'd be betting on the Spurs right now. But I really like that opening game, and we'll start there. We'll get into all the important stuff, but we'll start with Spurs opening night. Chip, what do you think about that? What do you think about San Antonio, Knicks drawing them in San Antonio for their first game?
Yeah, I love the Spurs thing. Not that I think any less of the Spurs, but whenever I think of the opening night thing, I think of how the Knicks with the D. Rose, Joakim Noah Knicks had to open up against the Cavs.
Mm-hmm.
And they got blown out, and it just seemed like the season had lost steam right from the start. And then last year against Oklahoma City, they just got rocked on the road, too.
That was a tough one.
Yeah, that was brutal. And I think Kristaps played pretty well in that game, but still, it was a bad loss. And not that expectations were huge last year, but it was still devastating to see that one.
You're saying 2 years ago, the Kristaps in OKC, right?
Oh, 2 years ago was Kristaps in OKC. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, because I was going to bring it up later, but last year they drew the Hawks at home. And
That's right.
They slaughtered them, destroyed them at home, and of course, me and everyone else got fooled, and we're like, actually, are these Knicks better than we thought they were? Which obviously wasn't the case. But I think I know what you were getting at there with San Antonio. It's like a nice first game for the Knicks. Not a team that's going to destroy them or dominate them. They're kind of like a middle-of-the-pack Western Conference team right now. It's a good early test for the Knicks, but it's nothing that's going to be demoralizing. Like you brought up, that Cavs game was kind of Jesus, it was right off the bat that, all of a sudden you're like, all right, this is going to be a tougher year than we thought. At least with the Spurs, it's kind of a good Western Conference team. If they show out, then you get a little bit of confidence saying, hey, we just competed with the Spurs. But if you get rolled a little bit, you can say, hey, Western Conference road game, we'll just see what happens from here. But I think I took your point there, but was that what you were thinking about with San Antonio?
Yeah, pretty much. The on the road against the Spurs, I think, is always a good test. Any play on the road at home is always a good test against the Spurs. But I think it's great to play Popovich the first game of the season for Fizdale too, because he's got all these new players he's trying to work in, and he's going up against the best coach ever, best coach in the game. And I think that's going to be really great for him to see how the best coach is going to game plan against his team. I think that's really interesting. And for the Knicks, like you said, they're not a great team, a great roster, but DeRozan is still a special player. Aldridge is still a special player. They still have a much better roster than the Knicks do. So if Dennis Smith, if Julius Randle can put up a good game against the Spurs, that gives them a lot of confidence going forward, because it gives players a lot of confidence when they perform well against teams like the Spurs.
Yeah, and I don't want to get off like too much of a tangent here on the Spurs, but like DeJounte Murray, if he's healthy, Derek White is looking really good this summer. I mean, the Spurs, they might have a pretty good backcourt. I'm not going to sit here and say they're a championship contender necessarily, but they have a nice little team, like, quietly. And as we all know, with the Spurs, it's like every year you expect them to take a downturn and not have as good a year. And then next thing you know, they're winning 50 games. They're the sixth seed or whatever, and they're having a great year again. I wouldn't bet against them, but I do. I think that's a great point you make about Fizdale. Popovich, he's going to come in, game plan, the whole 9 yards. He's going to know exactly what he wants to do in game one, and I think it's a good test for Fizdale to kind of go up against the best in the NBA. I mean, I don't think it's crazy to say Popovich is the best coach in the NBA. So it's definitely an interesting first game. I definitely think it's going to be a test for the Knicks early and kind of see where they're at. But then it doesn't slow down at all. Right after that, game 2 is at the Barclays against the Brooklyn Nets, led by Kyrie Irving, a guy who was at least in the Knicks thinking last year. Chip, what do you think about that first matchup with the Nets being game 2? They faced them game 2 last year as well, but obviously kind of the dynamic between the two teams was a little bit different back then.
Yeah, just a little bit different.
Yeah,
just a little different.
The understatement of the year.
Yeah, the understatement of the year for sure. Yeah, I'm happy they get it over with. All this nonsense trash talking on Twitter between Knicks fans and the small contingent of Nets fans on Twitter. I'm happy that the first game just happens in the first week of the season,
Yeah.
Like, even if it's in Brooklyn, let's be honest, we know that most Brooklyn Nets fans are still outnumbered by Knicks fans at Nets home games. So it's going to be interesting to see if the number of Nets fans grows during these Knicks-Nets games and by how many, because we'll see how many front-running Nets fans there are. When LeBron and Bosh went to the Heat and all of a sudden the Heat fan base grew exponentially. That was pretty interesting. But yeah.
Very organic. That was organic. That was just,
yes.
They were all Heat fans in waiting, I think, right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I'm happy. Like I said, I'm happy that they're getting the game out of the way early. But I'm very interested to see it too. I'm not going to act like jaded, like I don't care. I want to see them play the Nets. I want to see us play Kyrie Irving. I want to see DSJ against Kyrie. That's going to be fun. I want to see Mitch against Jared Allen.
Yeah, that's a good matchup right there.
Because the media acts like Jared Allen is better than Mitch, and that's nonsense. But I won't go down that road.
I think I don't know. I feel like the worm is turned a little bit on that conversation.
You think so?
I think I don't know. Maybe I'm just reading certain people, but I feel like most of the people I hear, if you ask them straight up, Mitch or Jared Allen, who you taking? I feel like most would take Mitch, but I do know what you're saying. Like last year, the feeling was almost that like, oh, Jared Allen is like what Mitch hopes to be in like 3 years. Like that's something, like people kind of, and I love Jared Allen. I'm high on him, but I think I agree with you. I think Mitch is a better player than him already, like right now. If you're asking me to pick between the two of them in a game tomorrow, I'm taking Mitch.
For sure. I mean, who's, the prototype for that kind of player is Rudy Gobert.
Oh, yeah. So, I love that. I love that comparison, Mitch and Rudy.
Yeah. So who's closer to Rudy Gobert? I don't think it's any contest, right? It's Mitch just, the way he plays looks like Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
Just so 100%. Much like him. And, yeah, I agree with you. Jared Allen's a nice player too, but Jared Allen can't guard anybody in the post. And I think Mitch has a much more skill set that's competent to be able to do that. But Now we're going off on a Mitchell Robinson, Jared Allen tangent.
We could.
I'm sorry I started that.
No, it's all right. We could talk about Mitch for days. I'm sure. Oh my God. But no, I 100% agree with what you're saying about the Nets. It's a good thing to get it out of the way early. Just get that first one out of the way. But the thing I always hate, and I feel like this has happened the last 3 years. The last time the Nets and the Knicks play is the end of January 26th. I would actually like, and it's not. I don't think the Knicks are competing for the playoffs, which is something we've talked about before. But I don't think the Knicks are competing for the playoffs. But I'd like a March Knicks-Nets game, and I feel like that never they front load the games. They have one in October, one in November, one in December, one in January, which I guess it's kind of spread out. They're like a month apart each. But I would like it to see more of like a late Knicks Nets, and maybe when the Knicks get a little bit better, they're a playoff type team. Maybe that'll happen. But for me, I feel like you lose a lot of that juice when the last game is going to be in the towards the end of January.
Yeah, like Knicks Nets on St. Patty's Day, maybe.
That would be. That might be a bad idea for the city, but but
that's a good point.
But that would be a good idea for for us for hype and we would get a couple episodes out of that one. I think.
Yeah, the Knicks are weirdly playing the Hornets.
Yeah, that was
that was a more boring opponent.
That was a weird one because I think last year it was. Was it the Lakers last year? I think, or
I think so.
It might not have been. It might not have been the day of St. Patty's Day, but it might have been that weekend. But it's usually they give a somewhat decent game. Knicks Hornets. That's if you're not a Knicks fan or you're not a Hornets fan, I don't know why you would be tuning into that game. No offense to either organization.
March 18th, they're at Boston, so they're giving them that. But St. Patty's.
Yeah.
I guess that's the game, but still, on St. Patrick's Day, the Hornets, like you said, I mean, no one cares about the Hornets.
No one.
Now that Kemba's gone, no one cares.
I mean, even when the Knicks are awful, people at least care about them. You can give them an argument for any game you put them in, but the Hornets, that's not even one I looked at and was like, that's a weird game, but that's a pretty weird game. Well, you brought up briefly there the Celtics. That's actually the home opener. I believe that's on the 26th of October. That's going to be the Madison Square Garden opener, which, the Celtics are a much better team than the Knicks. We all know that. It's going to be the Enes Kanter revenge game. He's coming back, which, honestly, I don't even want to make Enes Kanter the centerpiece of that game because I think there's the Knicks and the Celtics, it's a bigger story than Enes Kanter. I don't want to give it too much time. But honestly, I'm excited to see the kind of reception that he gets when he comes back to Madison Square Garden. Because I don't know. I honestly, Kyrie, when he goes back to Boston, he's getting booed. When Kristaps comes back to New York, he's getting booed hard. I wouldn't put money on it that Enes Kanter gets booed when he comes back to New York.
No, I don't think he will. It's not Knicks Twitter in the stands at Madison Square Garden.
Exactly. If Knicks Twitter was the only people in Madison Square Garden that night, he would be booed out of the arena. But it was weird last year when Knicks Twitter people I guess writers, bloggers around if you're on Knicks Twitter, you saw the hate for Enes Kanter. It was unmistakable. A lot of people disliked him, and for some valid reasons, but he's obviously got some good parts to his game too. So I think at some point the Twitter hate got a little too much on Kanter, and it kind of jumped the shark. But at the same time, when all that was going on, and if I logged onto Twitter, I would see Kanter's the worst player I've ever seen in my life. He can't play defense, this, that, the other thing. And then I'd go to the games, and there were people literally chanting for Kanter when he was benched for that little spell there. There were people in the stands going crazy for Enes Kanter.
Yeah, we want Kanter chants all the time,
And I remember seeing people quote articles from Berman at the Post or whoever, and it was Enes Kanter saying something I know the fans want me out there, and that's why it's so hard to be on the bench. And people on Twitter would be like, no Knicks fan wants you out there. And I remember just thinking, like, no, there are Knicks fans that want him out there. I think he's gonna get like as mixed a reception as you can get at a Knicks game. It's weird, but that's like one of the weird, intriguing storylines about that first home opener.
Yeah, you're right. That's an interesting one because will he get like a real 50-50 mix of like boos and cheers? I just assumed because it's such a different crowd that goes to the games.
It really is, yeah.
And that tweets about the games.
100%. So
I just assumed he'll just get a huge standing ovation cheer. Maybe not standing ovation, but he'll get cheered. But I don't know, maybe there's enough people that are like, yeah, screw this guy. And because he also went to the Celtics, too.
Another thing, yeah.
Yeah, so that could play a factor into it.
But also, I feel like there's a certain amount of the crowd, like, I know there's so many, like, tourists and non-Knicks fans who are, like, they show up there and everyone roots for the Knicks because you're there. Yeah. But, like, I feel like there's going to be, like, it might just end up being, like, 75% apathetic, like 10% I hate Cantor, and then 50% like, or 15% like, cheering for him. I feel like it's just going to be like a weird return. And if I know Enes Kanter, I know he's going to like walk out on the court, like kiss the like mid court or something,
yes,
or like do something like, oh, I'm back, like an Instagram post, like I don't know. I feel like that's just his MO at this point. And it's just going to be weird in a game that's like to me, the worst thing about the schedule release is the like revenge game this night. I know those are like intriguing storylines, but I feel like it gets overblown. And now what have we been talking about? The Enes Kanter revenge game for like 5-10 minutes now. It's like this is like what everyone cares about because in the NBA now it's like everyone just goes to whatever team, moves around. It's become the revenge night league.
And who does Enes Kanter exactly want revenge against with the Knicks?
The front office, maybe, I guess. The coaching staff, because...
I guess Fizz, because Fizz did bench him, but...
But that would also... I mean, no, I can't... I'm not saying this out of anything I know. This is just me speculating, but I don't think Fizdale was the one benching Kanter. I think that was coming from higher up than him.
I think probably.
Which, I mean, like, what I always said is, like, I understand why you would not want to play Kanter last year. You want to get, Robinson. You want to get some of the younger guys some time. I understand it. But I also understand why he was mad. It was just a weird situation.
But he did opt into that contract knowing the situation.
That's the other thing he did. He knew, and, he can talk about all he wants. I thought we were going to win. Come on, no one thought the Knicks were going to be like trying to win last year. That's just come on. That's just I don't know. That's not a good argument for me. But we should get to the real revenge game.
Yes.
And this one I'll admit. Like I just said, I hate revenge, like that whole revenge game storyline. But the Kristaps Porzingis coming back to Madison Square Garden on November 14th. That's going to be a pretty big game. It's one of the 3 games the Knicks have nationally televised, which we'll get to the other ones later. But I'd say that if you're looking for one game to circle on your schedule as a Knicks fan, I'd say that's definitely it.
Has to be, for sure. I mean, it's going to be an all-time boo.
Yeah.
Every time he touches the ball, when he checks into the game, when he checks out of the game, when he checks back into the game, it's going to be brutal on him. And I'm really looking forward to it. I always rooted for Kristaps. I was a big fan, and he turned his back on our team. So it was just really the whole thing was bizarre, and I'm sure he wants to drop 30, 40 points, whatever, so he's probably going to take a lot of shots, and He's playing with a great player with Luka Doncic, so they probably have the better team. So it's going to be a fun game. Look, Luka Doncic is one of the most fun players to watch in the league, so it's going to be a fun game to watch. But it's also the Dennis Smith revenge game too.
Ooh, I didn't even
get the team that traded him.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah,
exactly.
There's like a double revenge game. Although I was going to bring this up, but this to me, I hate this. They have the Knicks playing the Mavs like 6 days before the Madison Square Garden game.
Right, in Dallas, yeah.
To me, that come on, space those out. Like you don't first of all, you don't want to put them right next to each other because like this is the only 2 times Porzingis is going to play the Knicks. But also like it just feels weird that they're going to Dallas first. Porzingis is going to play against his old team. The whole thing. That I guess technically that's Dennis Smith Jr.'s revenge game because maybe he'll get booed in Dallas. Who knows? Who knows if they even care? But like it's just to me like. Putting the at Dallas game a week before the Garden game is just I think that was bad planning on the NBA's part because I don't know. I just feel like that Porzingis, if that was the first time he played against the Knicks in Madison Square Garden, that would have been, love him or hate him, that would have been an epic game to see that happen. And you know me, I am one of the people who said they shouldn't have traded Porzingis. I'm on that train. I'm going to be at that game, like, just if Porzingis goes off, obviously it's a year into or less than a year into the trade, so you can't make any, like, definitive this team won, that team lost. But I feel like if Porzingis comes in, he drops 30, has 4 blocks, 7 rebounds, and the Mavs win, running away, that's going to be a tough look for the Knicks that early into the season after basically they traded Porzingis with the idea that, we're going to sign 2 max free agents and they didn't get anything. That's going to be a tough look if Porzingis comes in and just drops a 30 on them. That's going to be a tough one for them.
It's a tough look because they gave him up for nothing now. And I don't want to hear how they got Dennis Smith back and how they got a pick back. Okay, because who knows if Dennis Smith's going to be on the team in 2 years, and that pick could end up sucking because they have Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis now, and they could be really good now. So I don't want to hear about a pick, and I don't want to hear about a maybe starting point guard. Who knows? So yeah, I've been back and forth on whether or not Kristaps trade should have happened. The front office has tried to sell that Kristaps threatened to sit out the season and go back to Europe. I think they said at one point, didn't they?
He I guess from the reports, he told them in the meeting if he wasn't traded, he was going to go back and rehab in Europe. Was the report at least?
Jeez, I don't know. Whatever. Like I said before, the whole thing is so bizarre, and I guess in hindsight that if a guy really doesn't want to be there that bad, you have to trade him because he's just gonna make you look bad. And they also said he was down talking the franchise to other free agents too. So they felt like they needed to get him out of there because he was a problem. And it's still, to me, it's still up in the air as to whether or not the trade was a failure. A lot of people consider it the right move already. I think it's still up in the air because
that's wrong.
The Knicks haven't done anything.
To me, what's the most important thing any NBA team can have? The most precious resource is stars. You can't win without a star. Kristaps Porzingis was undoubtedly, before his injury, a star, like a budding superstar, a potential defensive player of the year, a guy who could average 30 points, like a superstar, like a stud. Obviously, his injury makes things a little more malleable. Like, you don't know exactly what's going to happen. You don't know exactly how he's going to heal from it. But to me, you traded Kristaps for Dennis Smith Jr., cap space, and picks. picks, that's like, I love having assets. That's awesome. Like, it's a good thing to accrue assets, but that's not a star, and that's down the line. Dennis Smith Jr., is he going to be a star? I don't think he's going to be as good as Porzingis. I feel pretty comfortable saying that. And then the other thing, salary cap space, they didn't get any of their guys. To me, it's just, we don't have to get too deep into this Porzingis stuff, but you traded away a potential superstar, and yes, he did say, "Oh, I'm going to go back to Europe." According to the reports, he said, "I'm going to leave. I'll go back to Europe." But no person in his position has ever turned down the max, like after their rookie deal. Not a single player in the NBA history has ever turned down that deal. Porzingis was not turning that down after he just tore his ACL and after he's like on his way back. Like, was he going to play for the qualifying offer for like $7 million this year and then try and like go for a max deal as an unrestricted free agent next summer? I don't think that was happening. I mean, I think he was going to sign that deal with the Knicks. Maybe he'd become a problem, immediately request a trade, and it turns into a whole thing. So we can't ever say definitively. But like the people who say he was never going to sign with the Knicks anyway, he was signing that contract. There's no way he's turning down max money to become a qualifying, sign a qualifying offer and become a free agent next year. The injury risk to me is too much. And the whole thing I always say about the Porzingis trade, until they get another star, the Porzingis trade was a failure. Until they get another guy that can be like one of those one or two guys you need to win a championship, that's what you need to replace Porzingis with. And I don't know if they're going to get that from that deal. So it just, we don't have to get too, although we already did, we don't have to get too deep into the Porzingis stuff. But it really, that's the biggest game of the year, I think, for the Knicks. That November 14th game, Porzingis coming in the Garden. You're going to have the fans like foaming at the mouth for the first chance to see him in almost 2 years now. I think that is seriously the one every Knicks fan should have circled on their calendars. Tell your cousin you're not going to the wedding, like whatever. It doesn't matter. That's the game you need to watch as a Knicks fan next year.
For sure. And I think you make a great point about the money, too. Money cures everything. I mean, if the Knicks had been willing to put that contract in front of him, which they were not, would he have signed it? I think he probably would have. Like everybody talks about how the situation in Minnesota with Jimmy B was a disaster, but they weren't willing to max him out.
That's the thing, yeah. He thinks he's like a top. If they were willing
to max him out, he would still be there.
He thinks he's a top 15, 20 player. Anyone who thinks that, like a Butler, Porzingis, they're going to want a max deal. Like,
right.
That's and not to get off on another tangent, but people who were saying like, "Oh, Russell Westbrook didn't deserve the money he got." It's like, do you really think if the Thunder offered him less than the max, he would have been like, "Yeah, that's fine, whatever. I'll take a hit for the team." But I mean, I don't think Porzingis was turning down that money. Whether the Knicks were going to give it to him, who knows? We'll never know. But yeah, the Porzingis, if the Knicks wanted to give him a max deal, he was never, ever turning that down. That's just ridiculous to think.
Yeah, and also, the Mavericks couldn't offer that money to him fast enough.
It was almost before Durant and Kyrie signed with the Nets that like you already heard about Porzingis.
It was. I mean, there were no injury concerns there for them, and his legal concerns too, which we didn't even touch on. The Mavericks obviously had no qualms about that.
Yeah, that's for like a podcast of lawyers or something.
Yes, I guess so. We don't. That's not our specialty.
I don't even want to get into that. I'll talk about his knee. I'll talk about how he's great at blocking shots at the rim, but that's the extent of what I know.
Yes.
But let's move on because there's another early stretch of games, and I just put out a post yesterday, which I guess would be 2 days ago for when people are listening to the podcast. I put out a post, and one of my top 5 games that you can't miss for the Knicks this year was the Sacramento Kings in Sacramento on December 13th which seems like a weird game, which you would pick for like that's a big game for the Knicks. But it comes in the middle of a 4-game West Coast road trip, and in a 13-game stretch that Sacramento game is in, the Kings are the only non-playoff team in that stretch, and they're a pretty good team. They got a pretty good non-playoff team there. I think it starts on, let me look up right here. It starts in San Antonio on 11/23, and then it's San Antonio, Brooklyn, Toronto, Philly, Boston, Milwaukee, Denver, Indiana, Portland, Golden State, Sacramento, and Denver. That is a brutal 13-game stretch. And I know there's a lot of people out there, maybe not a lot, but there's a significant amount of people out there who think the Knicks are going to contend for a playoff spot. I can't see it after that 13-game stretch because I can't see the Knicks winning more than 4, maybe 5 games in that stretch right there.
Wow, that's
that's
brutal.
And it's not even like playoff teams where you're saying like, oh, Orlando and somebody who's fallen off or something. Like even I guess maybe if you want to make the argument that Oladipo won't be back for Indiana, they won't be great. But still, those are legit playoff teams, Western Conference teams. I mean, I don't know. I just can't see the Knicks making it out of that stretch of games with their heads on.
Yeah, Philly twice, Denver twice. You got Golden State in here.
Portland.
At Golden State, at Portland.
And like I bring up the Kings because I think that's the most winnable game maybe of the maybe you want to say Indiana at home is a little more winnable, but like that is just a brutal 13-game span.
Yeah. At Toronto, that's oof.
And Toronto, like obviously they don't have Kawhi, but I was at a couple of games last year when Kawhi didn't play in the Garden, and Toronto they still smacked him around. Like they were still, Lowry, Siakam, Gasol, like their regular core without Kawhi was still good enough. I don't know. I know we've talked about this before, but I don't even want to say that the Knicks will definitely no chance at the playoffs because they do have some talent on the roster. Maybe, if Fizdale makes it work, kind of one of those like magical seasons, I wouldn't be completely shocked. But once the schedule came out, I had to rethink that because this is it's early. The Knicks don't have much continuity. It's going to be a brutal stretch of games. Usually that comes in like late December, early January, but it's early this year.
Yeah, it's like we're the Utah Jazz right now. I mean, getting screwed in the early schedule.
That's a good point.
By the way, apparently they got screwed this year too.
Well, I feel like some of those West teams they have to get screwed like that. If you're in a good conference or in a good division in the Western Conference, you're gonna be playing good teams all the time.
Yeah, I guess it just seems like it always happens to Utah. Yeah. The last 2 or 3 years, it seems like it happens to them all the time. But I hadn't noticed that. It's a brutal stretch there. Just like because you got, like I said, at Toronto, you got at Milwaukee too, and then later on there you got at Miami too. Fortunately, you have Atlanta at home.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Atlanta at home.
That's the thing. They have, Atlanta at home, and I do think Atlanta is going to be a little better this year, but I would say probably, and even I was just like a couple weeks ago, and say probably people are overrating them a little bit just because of Trae Young and John Collins, and they have young guys. But they have, Atlanta at home. You would think that's a winnable game at the very least. Then you go to Miami, home against Milwaukee, home against the Wizards, which you would think another winnable game. Brooklyn on the road, I don't know. That rivalry game, you never know. At Washington, that's another winnable game because the Wizards aren't going to be good. But that right after that Washington game, so it's like not a long stretch. What is it, 5 after that 13-game span? And then you have Portland at home on New Year's Day, and then you're going a 4-game road trip. Phoenix, Clippers, Lakers, Utah. Boom. It's like another kind of like difficult stretch, like right after it. I think it's just, to me, looking at the schedule, it's going to be tough for them with these just early just tests. It's going to be tough for the Knicks.
Yeah, and then you got the big debut of Zion right after that.
Well, that's right after the Utah game I mentioned. That's the one of the other nationally televised games they have. I think it's the Kristaps revenge. I want to say the December 26th game against Brooklyn, and then the Pelicans. It's Zion. Zion versus Barrett. The Zion debut at MSG. At least in the NBA, he was there at Duke, but
right.
At least, I mean, hey, I gotta say that's at least going to be an interesting game to watch, even if both teams at that point are kind of like, not really in the playoff race. It's going to be fun to watch Zion. I still feel like he's going to be a compelling storyline next year.
Yeah, I think people expect the Pelicans to compete for the final spot, or at least have a pretty good season, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
I mean, I like Lonzo Ball. I like Brandon Ingram. I think they're both going to be good players. I think Hart's a good player. I think Zion would have to get hurt and miss the whole season to not win Rookie of the Year. So
the
matchup with him and Barrett's going to be fun.
I don't know. I feel like the hype around Zion is there's so much hype around him, but I feel like Rookie of the Year at least. I mean, you even saw it Luka Doncic this year. 2 months in the year, it's no one even has a chance. Trae Young, I know he didn't get close in the voting, but he kind of at least made half an attempt at it. I feel like if Zion kind of doesn't live up to hype in year one, I could see Barrett or Morant or somebody kind of sneaking in and making a play for Rookie of the Year.
Well, because Morant's going to be taking a lot of shots.
That's a good point.
And Barrett's going to be taking a lot of shots, a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe he may lead the team in shots. And
it might not. It would be a good idea, I think, or maybe not.
I think
maybe not lead the team in shots, but I think it's in the Knicks' best interest to have Barrett shoot a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I say that, but I assume Julius Randle is going to try and get his as much as possible too.
Yeah, that's true.
But Morant with Memphis. I mean, you have Triple J there, but Morant's going to get a lot of opportunities. But I agree with you with the Luka thing. That the hype there matched his the first half of the season. With Luka, he was so great that it didn't matter that he slowed down in the second half because he had already won over so many voters in the first half.
Yeah.
And Trae Young outplayed him the second half of the season and still didn't win the award.
Yeah. No, it was, and it really was the first couple months. I mean, obviously, I'm not taking anything away from Doncic. I would have voted for him Rookie of the Year too.
Yeah, me too.
But I mean, you're not wrong. It was kind of the first couple months he kind of took it over, and Young was almost an afterthought at that point in the season. But I don't know. We'll see. I would love to see Zion come in on whatever it is, January 10th. I'd love to see the Pelicans kind of surviving in the hunt in the West. Knicks kind of keeping their heads afloat, and seeing Barrett, Zion go for a Rookie of the Year matchup type thing. I think that would be pretty cool to see.
I think they'll probably at that point both be 1 or 2 or 1, 2 or 3.
At least, yeah, both
Rookie of the Year voting.
Both kind of in the running, at least.
Yeah,
I would hope for both of them.
Yeah, I would be surprised if they weren't.
And we're going to transition from the Zion. I think there's one more game I have circled on the schedule, and what kind of sucks is it's January 22nd. So there's this that kind of purgatory area of every Knicks season that's February, March, April, where it's every game you're almost just watching to see how the young guys progress. I don't know if you have any games picked out from that. We'll get to that in a minute. But the last game I have circled on my calendar is January 22nd against the Lakers. And usually when you circle a game that LeBron James is playing in, it's because LeBron James is playing in it. But this time, I think Anthony Davis is a much better storyline because he could still possibly be thinking about opting out and testing free agency. And if that's the case, you're going to have billboards in New York City, Anthony Davis, come to New York. You're going to have all the hype. You're going to have first things first take. You're going to have everybody talking about, can Anthony Davis go to the Knicks from the Lakers? I think that's going to be an interesting game for, if nothing else, just people talking about free agency chatter and just drumming up rumors. And again, LeBron, Anthony Davis, the Lakers come to New York. It's still a good game no matter what.
Yeah, I love watching LeBron James. I mean, I don't necessarily like the way that he acts off the court. Sometimes he's kind of a pain in the ass. But when you watch him play basketball, there's no one more entertaining other than maybe Russell Westbrook. So, yeah, it's great to see him at the Garden, too, because he always plays his best basketball there, it feels like.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be a lot of fun. And Davis with LeBron, I can't imagine a more dangerous duo. So I think watching the two of them together at the Garden, it's going to be interesting. But like you said, the fans chanting every time Davis touches the ball. Hopefully they'll have some cheers for LeBron about how Davis should get out of there before LeBron trades him. It's going to be very fun. I hope they have some Space Jam chants prepared. That would be very fun, too.
Yeah, that's good.
It'll be interesting. I haven't even thought too seriously about Anthony Davis coming to New York. I mean, I just assumed he's going to stay in L.A. He wanted to be traded there, so why would he want to leave? It'd have to be like a disastrous Dwight Howard, Kobe kind of thing for him to leave. And I don't see that happening with LeBron. He's not Kobe.
But the thing I will say is I agree with you. I do think Davis is going to end up, in L.A. with the Lakers for the foreseeable future. But for a fact that for at least until January, that's going to be a storyline. That's going to be maybe not to the hype level of the Kevin Durant stuff, but everyone in the media's got to jump on a storyline and make something the next big thing. Davis opting out and leaving the Lakers, that's going to be the next big thing. And who else is going to be around to sign him? It's going to be the Knicks. So
True.
It should. I mean, I agree with you. If dollars to donuts, I'm betting on him to stay with the Lakers. But I do think that there's some potential for that January 22nd game to be kind of the same old thing of the Knicks fans saying oh, LeBron come, oh, Durant come. I still think there's that possibility there.
I think it was Mark Berman who wrote that Rich Paul would like to see one of his clients in New York, right?
Yep.
And when I read that, I thought maybe he would, just not this client. He wants to keep this client in L.A. Maybe it'll be a different client. Maybe he wants to see John Wall in New York. So he's not with the Wizards anymore.
Whoa. All right, let's back up a minute here.
Yeah, I don't want to see
I'm just messing with you.
Yeah.
Wait, does he represent Zion? Because, when's his rookie contract up?
Oh, yeah, I don't think he does.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Just him and, this is the NBA world we live in now, but there's already the stories about Zion and RJ have both said they've talked about teaming up in the NBA. And it's because someone asked them, would you guys ever want to play on the same team in the NBA? And they both said oh, I'd love to play with one of my best friends in the world. And then everyone's turns out Zion and RJ are thinking about teaming up down the line. That's the
Like
NBA world we live in.
years we're talking about now?
Yeah, that's. I mean, unless Zion, if I guess if he wants to take the qualifying offer and play a year there and then sign with the Knicks, I don't know.
Hey, whatever it takes to get Zion to New York.
Yeah, I mean,
whatever it takes.
Whatever they were doing last year didn't work out, so I guess.
Yeah.
But that honestly, looking at the schedule, that's the last game I have circled on my calendar. There's almost 3 months left of basketball after that. Is there anything else you have, Chip, a big game you're thinking about or a team that you're thinking about the Knicks playing against that you're excited to see?
Well, we're talking about late in the season. We're talking about March. So I'm looking at March 2nd when Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and the Houston Rockets come to the Garden.
Okay.
And Mike D'Antoni, as we know, always likes to run it up on the Knicks when he faces the Knicks in preseason.
Oh, yeah.
And he leaves James Harden in till the end of the game to run it up on the Knicks. So it's going to be, look, like I just said before, Russell Westbrook is probably one of, if not the most exciting players in the NBA. James Harden always tries to score as many points as possible at the Garden. Last year, he tried to set the Garden record.
I think he hit 60. I think he just missed.
Yeah,
he just missed Melo's record, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think he hit 60. So I expect a lot of points from both of those guys this year, and I expect James Harden to try and break the Garden record again. And I expect, like last year, leading up to the game, people were talking about whether or not James Harden would break the Garden record. And I expect people to be talking about that again. And I think it's going to be a really fun game. It's always fun to watch Russell Westbrook. And look, the Rockets have been so good for the past 3 or 4 years, and they've been so painstakingly boring for so long that they needed to inject Russell Westbrook into it. And now, hopefully, they are a different team to watch, a faster, up-tempo team, because they're on TV all the time. You can't get away from them.
All the time.
All the time. You can't not watch the Rockets. So I'm just looking forward to that game. I want to see Russell Westbrook at the Garden, James Harden at the Garden. They're one of the most intriguing teams. Even if you don't like either one of those guys, you have to be intrigued by that.
Even if you don't like either one of those guys, you probably hate them. In which case, you would like to watch them. And I like that point you made about Harden. Every time he goes to the Garden, he's trying to set the record. I could see 100% Russ like not taking a shot that game and just being like, let's get James the record, and like the Rockets taking like an early lead, and then Westbrook having like wide open dunks and just kicking it out to Harden. Like I could 100% see that happening, because both of those guys are just like, I don't know. I could just see those two doing that, and then I could see D'Antoni being like, all right, yeah, we're playing you 45 minutes tonight, James. Like, you're going to
just being like, do whatever you want.
Yeah, you're getting your career high tonight, James. Like, you are going to have the best game you've ever had in your entire life.
Mm-hmm.
But another one that I'm looking at it now, I like actually the March 21 Golden State, because call me crazy. Anytime Golden State comes in, that's an interesting game. But call me crazy, D'Angelo Russell is not going to be in Golden State forever. Their core is Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. There's at least a sliver of a chance that D'Angelo Russell ends up with the Knicks at some point down the line. I don't know. Just keep your eye on that. I'm not going to say anything definitively or anything like that, but just keep your eye on that, because the Knicks might be looking for, a secondary star at some point in the future, and Russell's not staying in Golden State much longer than a year or two.
I was just going to say, there's some people who think he may not be in Golden State by March 21st.
It's possible. I mean, if that's the case, I don't think he would be going to the Knicks. I think the Knicks would be like an off season or like a next year trade deadline team. But it's 100% possible that that the Warriors just are like, all right, we're getting Clay back, and right before the playoffs, we have Curry, we have Draymond. Let's recoup some value for Russell here.
Yeah, but they just paid Draymond though, so I don't think they've made a decision on D'Lo yet. I think it all depends on how he plays with Curry, and I think he plays well off the ball, Curry. So D'Lo needs the ball in his hands more than Curry does. So it's going to be very interesting because a lot of it's going to depend on how good a defense D'Angelo Russell can play. Because the reason Thompson and Curry worked so well is because Thompson was able to defend the best guard on the other team.
But that's what, like, do you think Russell, Curry, like, they can defend the 1-2 and then you move Thompson to like the 3? I don't know if that. I mean, obviously, offensively, that's a really good team, but does that work defensively with Curry and D'Lo as like your backcourt guys, and then you kind of flex Thompson up to the 3 guy? I don't know.
I mean, does it really matter? Like, you still put Thompson on James Harden or Russell Westbrook, right? You still don't guard him on the. You stand yet. What do you do? You hide D'Lo. You hide D'Lo on Eric Gordon or PJ Tucker. One of the lesser players.
And then you're putting Curry on Westbrook?
I probably, yeah.
But that's what I mean.
Thompson on Harden.
That's what I mean. It's like it's just tough defensively to figure out that lineup and figure out how they make it work.
I feel like Thompson, if you shut down Harden, then it's a wrap for Houston. But I think you put your best defender on their best player, and Harden's the best player.
Yeah, so. I agree with that. I just think it's tough after that because D'Lo's he's a bad defender. He's not good, and I'd say Curry. I'll give Curry. He's an average defender. He can hold his own. He's at the point where he's like enough of a veteran to kind of like know his game a little bit, but I don't know. I don't know if it's going to work, but also I don't know when. I think I'm comfortable saying I think the Warriors are going to trade Russell at some point, but I just don't know when. And I think the Knicks at that point in time, whenever the Warriors are ready to trade Russell, they're going to be in the position like, all right, let's go get somebody. So I don't know. That's just that for me. Somewhat of an interesting matchup. Just keep an eye on Russell out there.
I would like to see Russell on the Knicks. I would have went after him this year.
I thought about that too. Yeah.
If I was the Knicks, but I thought he was going to the T-Wolves.
Yeah, because that was the whole talk. He wanted to go play with, I guess, Karl Anthony Towns or something like that. But I don't know. I guess
that fell apart pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I guess when the Nets decided they could, do the sign and trade, that probably just kind of fell into place. And also, if you're in D'Angelo Russell's shoes, you can go play with the team that just won 3 out of 5, NBA Finals, and that's just Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson. It's like, I can live with that. I can live with that.
Yeah, he's the next. He's the next guy to come up on the Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard trend, Paul George trend.
Yeah,
Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. He might be the next one that turns into the he's looking to get out type thing or whatever.
And he's going to be linked to the Knicks because he's a Jersey kid.
Oh yeah. He's he's from South Jersey or no, I think it's from North Jersey. But
I think it's North Jersey.
Yeah,
I think it's North Jersey.
There's no such thing as Central Jersey. It's just North or South.
No,
it's just North. I think he's is he maybe Camden? I think or something like that. I don't know.
I think so. I forget. Did he play at St. Pat's? No.
That was St. Pat. Yeah, St. Pat's was Kyrie, Michael Kidd Gilchrist.
Yes.
A couple other guys, older guys, but yeah, he wasn't a St. Pat's guy. But
Edison. He's from Edison.
Edison. That's what it is. So that's actually, that's probably North Jersey, right? So.
Yeah. Yeah, and he went to St. Joe's Metuchen. So
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
I used to.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to go to Edison for work when I was driving delivery all the time back in the day. It feels like it was way more south than North Jersey, but I guess not.
I guess it's like north central Jersey. It's like, I think it's like in the area of New Brunswick, like where Rutgers is.
Mm. And you can't say Central Jersey. That's just not allowed.
I never say it, but I'm from North Jersey, so I never go to Central Jersey.
Yeah, that's at least me being a New Yorker. I've said Central Jersey before, and people, there's no such thing as Central Jersey. Yeah, but I think unless you got any other games you want to talk about, I think we pretty much went through every big game for the Knicks this year. They got that early. It's going to be tough early on for them. But, I mean, who knows? If they survive December, they could have a nice little season. But me personally, I don't feel that comfortable that they're going to survive that 13-game stretch in November/December. So the schedule release had me more pessimistic on the Knicks. How'd you feel about that, Chip?
Yeah, I wasn't too confident before the schedule release, and I'm even less confident now.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't be. I feel the same way as you. I wouldn't be stunned if they made the playoffs, but I'm not expecting it. I saw Bleacher Report predicted that they're going to win 20 games.
That was a little. I
was like, whoa.
Yeah, that was a little. I don't know. I'm as pessimistic as the next person as they come, but that was a little. I don't know. That seems a little low to me. 20.
It's 29. They had the second worst record in the league. They had a worse record than the Hornets.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't see that.
Yeah.
That's
not a lot of love for the Cavs either. Too 19 wins for the Cavs. Jeez.
Yeah. I don't know enough about the Cavs, but yeah, for the Knicks, that seems. I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're going to win 30 games or anything like that, but 20 is low. That is not many games at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a little surprised by that, and I was looking at that too, and that goes to your point about the Hawks overrating too. The guy, not that it's a huge win total, but the guy gave Atlanta 33 wins. I thought that was a little high.
Yeah,
for Atlanta. I think people are overrating them a little bit. But not. I was just saying 20 wins for New York seems really, really freaking low.
They were trying to lose games last year, like actively tanking, and they won 17. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not saying that they're going to be like the best team in the world, but I feel like they're at least going to be trying to win games this year, in which case you can like walk into like 25 games in that. If you're trying to win, you can steal a few here and there. 20 might, to me at least, be a little low.
Yeah, definitely. I think 20 is a little low, but I also don't think they're going to win 30 or something like that.
Yeah, I think mine right now, if you're asking me to guess, I'm going to say 27, but that's going to change in the next, month or so before the season starts anyway, so.
Yeah, I think I initially I went with like 22 or something like that. Mm. I've been flip-flopping back and forth on it so much. But I don't know. I now that I've seen this like brutal stretch that they have to go through, I need to make a solid prediction. It's tough. It's tough because the roster is obviously better, and like you said, they were losing on purpose last year, and they still managed to win. Not managed to win like they won a lot of games or something, but it's weird. They're in a weird situation, so we'll see. It's going to be a very interesting year. This is a very important year for the Knicks, and a huge year for Fizdale too. I was thinking about that when I saw the schedule. What a huge year for Fizdale this is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be the same old, they fire him after 2 years or anything like that. But the Knicks have a bad year after this year, the seat's gonna get very hot going into next season.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the time we have for you in the Knicks State of Mind podcast this week, but we'll catch you next week. Thanks again for me, your host, Danny Small, and my co-host, Chip Murphy.